I'm gonna teach you guys how I deadlifted 7 plates. I want you guys to realize that I didn't start off strong at the gym at all. I probably started off with 95 pounds on deadlift, and even then, I was literally shaking and I could barely complete those reps. If you do the tips that I'm about to tell you, I guarantee your deadlift is gonna get way better and you're gonna get way stronger. The first tip is to look at which deadlift stance fits your body better. Despite what people say, there isn't a black or white deadlift stance that is easier than the other. While some people might say sumo is easier, there's a reason why some of the best powerlifters in the world don't deadlift sumo, despite being in powerlifting competitions where they want to lift the most amount of weight. Despite what people think, different deadlift stances fit different people better. So typically people with longer femurs, sumo tends to fit them better. Femur is basically the bone from your hip joint to your knee joint. So if you have longer femurs, you'd probably go for sumo, and if you have shorter femurs, you'd probably go for conventional. But the best way to see which fits you better is to just try the two, see which one you're stronger at. The second tip is to make the deadlift as efficient as possible. You ever wonder why there are some people who look skinny at the gym, but when they deadlift a lot of weight, and some people who are extremely muscular, they can't really deadlift that much? The difference between those two people is that the one person knows how to deadlift extremely efficiently, and the other doesn't have their form down and doesn't know how to deadlift efficiently. There are many cues on how to deadlift properly, like making sure your hips don't shoot up when you deadlift, making sure the bar is as close to your shins as possible, making sure your shoulder blades are in line with the bar. There's so many aspects of the deadlift that you have to take into account for. So the best way to do this is to film yourself deadlifting and see where you're going wrong and what you're doing right. The third tip is to utilize proper deadlifting frequency. There's no point in deadlifting once a week and trying to get as strong as possible. What I do recommend is if you're trying to get as strong as possible on your deadlift, you should be deadlifting twice a week. One where you're going heavy and the other where you're going lighter. Also potentially play around with different deadlift variations. So on one day you can do a regular deadlift, and on the other day you can use deadlift variations. Fourth tip is to bulk up. This is pretty much a universal tip that applies to pretty much every lift that you're doing. Whilst this applies less to the deadlift than to something like the bench press, it still is important. There's a reason why I went from deadlifting only 95 pounds at like 130, 140 pounds to deadlifting over 660 pounds at 190 pounds. The additional body weight I gained really helped me in deadlifting more weight overall. This last tip is going to help you if you're more advanced at your deadlift stages, or there's a specific point in your deadlift that needs work. For example, if you're slow off the bottom, you can do deadlift variations like the deficit deadlift, which allow you to train that portion of the lift and get stronger at it. That way, when you're doing regular deadlifts, you're able to pass by your sticking point a lot easier. A bonus tip that I want to include on how to get stronger at deadlifts is that you shouldn't do your 1 rep max in a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Honestly, you should probably do it every like 2 to 3 months, because the amount of systemic fatigue that you get from deadlifting and doing your 1 rep max is too much to handle on a weekly basis. And you're not really building strength when you're doing your 1 rep maxes. You're actually building your strength when you're doing your sets and reps.